Megumi Ishitani's and Masami Mori's work changed One Piece forever. Their joyful, vibrant and cinematic art style gave us some of the greatest works of animation ever created. I'm remaking One Piece's Water 7 opening, and this is the 10th out of 36 cuts in which I try to imitate one of the greatest art styles ever to be made, almost ruining the whole animation in the process. If you want to support this project, like the video, subscribe and write a comment, it really helps out a ton. Starting off, we obviously need a sketch. This is what I came up when planning this project over a year ago, with Robin and Chopper minding their business in a side street of Water 7. Robin is leaning against the wall, waiting for Chopper, who's inside the library that they're standing in front of, trying to reach a book. Normally, would start by sketching the characters with more detail, but since we have a very tall character like Robin and a very small character like Chopper, it only made sense to start painting the background first to assure keeping their sizes consistent and realistic. We're relatively early into the song, so the mood is still quite cozy and calm, which is why I decided to use a very yellowish color palette. Realistically, Water 7 is a rather grey place, but the art style that we're aiming at is all about color and emotion, so this one was a no-brainer. Water 7 is a place that gets hit with a tsunami wave called the Aqua Laguna once a year. And I always felt like the city should be more run down, which is why I added some overgrowth, which can both be interpreted as usual vines or algae that got stuck during the last Aqua Laguna. Finishing up the middle ground, I went on to paint the actual background. And let me tell you, this part was tedious as hell. Because we're looking at a library, we obviously need to have a lot of books. So I decided that there should be these big shelves full of all kinds of chaotically placed books along the back wall. And you can see right from the beginning here that I really did not feel like drawing in all these kinds of books. I figured it wouldn't be that important anyways, which later down the road led to a 3 AM session of drawing 143 different kinds of books. But with that, the annoying part was over and I could start actually animating the cut. I'll be honest, I don't really have a lot of practice with female anatomy, and having to adapt Eiichiro Oda's take on female anatomy really did not make it any easier. The big challenge with this whole animation project is that there's a very limited amount of reference material. One Piece related, you basically only got a few scenes from episode 1015, the Egghead opening and the fan letter special episode, from which I picked this 2-second clip as my reference. You can see me fiddling around with Robin's anatomy at first, but because of my unrivaled skill, that short reference was all I needed. Wow! Who wrote this? After getting the keyframes for Robin's movements down, I had the privilege of sending them over to a person that asked if they could help me animate this project and get the in-between frames made for me. Shout out to Ghost Frames, you saved me a lot of time, which I then could use to start animating Chopper. The original sketch had 2 versions. One where he's reaching his hand up to try and grab the book, and one where he's trying even harder, stretching himself as much as he can to try and get a little closer. To perform such an action, you would need some sort of momentum though, so there had to be a few breakdowns of him squatting to then try and reach a little higher. These kinds of frames are what really brings together the illusion of movement and tie the whole thing together. After adding a few more in-betweens and smear frames, his cleanup was also done. I do have to say I'm really proud of how his animation turned out. I think I really captured his very cute and energetic nature quite well. I already colored Chopper, so after receiving Ghost Frames' in-betweens and pasting them in, I could start coloring Robin as well. I know how much the One Piece community hates the Straw Hat's modern skin tones, and even though I think both her old version and her modern version work, I decided to tone down Robin's skin just a tiny bit. And with that, the animation was pretty much finished. There was only one problem left to solve. It really did not look good. The whole thing was very flat, there was no depth, and the colors really did not pop off like I imagined they would. At this point, I thought I was too far into the project to save anything, but after a really helpful discussion with Ghost Frames, it quickly became clear what needed to be improved on. We ended up color grading the background a little, making the middle ground a more reddish tone and changing the background, including the glass pane, to a little... We ended up color grading the background a little, making the middle ground a more reddish tone and changing the background, including the glass pane, to a light blue color, which created a very nice looking complementary contrast. Another thing that became clear is that even though the shading is very limited in our chosen art style, we had to push it a little further and ended up adding this shadow behind Robin, and I have to say, it really added a lot. During that process I noticed quite a few finishing touches that could be added that included coloring line art, thickening the outer line art, adding Chopper's backpack on the table in the window, and while I was at it I figured I also could add the book that Chopper was reaching for. And after 4 days of work we officially went from this to this. One last thing that I'm debating about is if I should add a few more people, since this is supposed to be a crowded city. Write your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next cut, which might end up becoming one of my favorite ones.